You ever heard the phrase, the silence before the storm? I used to think it was just a dumb saying. That was before my tour in Afghanistan. My name is Michael Kovac, but everyone calls me Mikey. I was an Army Ranger deployed to Kandahar in 2011. Our unit was carrying out night raids, trying to disrupt hostile operations in the area. Mostly routine work, kicking down doors, rounding up fighters, destroying weapon caches. But every veteran knows that feeling, that prickling at the back of your neck, that warns you something isn't right. It was during one of those ops that everything went sideways. Our target was a compound on the outskirts of a small village, suspected of housing high-ranking insurgents. The plan was simple: breach the exterior, clear the buildings, and exfil before the sun came up. We moved into position under cover of darkness. My buddy Franco and I stacked up on the west entry point, while the rest of the team covered the other sides. We always relied on the element of surprise, hitting the targets before they knew what was happening. On Sergeant's signal, we breached. Franco blew the lock and I took point, sweeping the dark interior with my rifle. But there was nobody there, just a few scattered blankets and cooking supplies. The other teams reported the same. The compound was empty. "Slim pickings tonight, boys," Sergeant's voice crackled over comms. "Pack it up, we're dusting off in 2 mics." Despite the lack of action, my instincts told me something wasn't right. An eerie silence hung in the air, pressing in like a physical weight. The village nearby should have been alive with the usual sounds of roosters and barking dogs. But there was nothing except, wait, was that a faint whistling? The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Say again all call signs. A heartbeat of dead silence passed. Then it came again, louder this time. An unnatural wavering moan that set my teeth on edge. Does anyone else hear that whistling? Desperation crept into my voice as the sound grew louder and more menacing, like the village itself was exhaling a tortured breath. "I hear it," Franco said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Damn it, where is that coming from?" Sergeant hissed. The whistling became a howl, rising in pitch until it felt like shards of ice lancing through my brain. Instinctively, I clapped my hands over my ears, but the shriek seemed to come from everywhere, worming its way inside my skull. Around me, my teammates were doing the same, some doubling over in agony. Through the ringing in my head, I heard a panicked voice over comms. An inhuman shriek cut it off mid-sentence. Gunfire erupted from the north side of the compound as muzzle flashes strobed through the darkness. "Contact north! Troops in contact!" Sergeant roared. I spun towards the sound of the shots, trying to blink away the dark spots clouding my vision. Out of the corner of my eye, a shadowy figure flickered in and out of existence. There 1 second and gone the next. A howl rent the air as the specter materialized, gliding forward with soundless, drifting strides. My mind reeled, unable to process what I was seeing. Was this some insurgent in an advanced ghillie suit toying with us? Or was it just my oxygen-starved brain playing tricks? All I knew is that we were boxed in, with the threat closing fast, and nowhere to run. Time seemed to slow. I opened fire, the staccato report of my rifle sounding muffled and far away. Tracer rounds lanced through the night, but the shadowy figure didn't flinch or take cover, just kept drifting forward with those unnatural gliding strides. It moved like death itself was coming for us. Gunfire raged from the north side before another shriek cut it off abruptly. I threw myself into a crouch, searching the darkness for Franco. To my horror, his rifle lay abandoned on the ground nearby, the barrel slowly spinning to a stop. The reality of our situation slammed into me. We didn't have a chance against this kind of threat. Not here. Not tonight. "Pull back. Everybody fall back to the rally point." Sergeant's order crackled amid the chaos. I grabbed Franco's discarded rifle and backpedaled, firing wildly at any shadow that moved. Something slammed into me from behind, dropping me hard to the ground. I twisted, bringing my rifle around, but an invisible force knocked it aside with dizzying force. In the same blink, a face materialized in front of mine, mouth stretching impossibly wide in a soul-rending shriek. That scream will haunt me until the day I die. A fusion of tortured rage and unspeakable sorrow given voice in an unholy wail. It reared back, jaws unhinged and gaping wide. I faced away, waiting for the end. A deafening crack split the night, followed by a heavy thwump as a grenade detonated nearby, the area washing in blinding white light. The specter recoiled, outline wavering and twisting, before dispersing like smoke caught in a stiff wind. Gunfire rang out as my squad poured fire into the conflagration. Go, go, get your asses to the rally point, Sergeant bellowed. I scrambled backwards, desperately trying to get my feet under me. Scooping up my rifle, I sprinted like hell was on my heels, each ragged breath feeling like shards of glass were ripping my lungs apart. Chaos reigned, random bursts of gunfire, garbled radio chatter, more of those soul-rending howls on the scorched air. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted our Humvees idling near the perimeter, the big .50 cal swiveling this way and that as the gunners swept for threats. I'd never been so relieved to see those bulky shapes silhouetted against the pre-dawn gloom. I pushed myself harder, boots pounding across the compacted earth. The howling grew louder, more anguished, like whatever was pursuing us could sense its chance slipping away with every lungful of air I dragged in. Closing in on the vehicles, a familiar face turned toward me. The glint of reflected moonlight, glinting off his night vision goggles. Mikey? That you, man? Where's the rest of the... His words cut off as my mind recoiled from the horrific implications of what I was glimpsing. My feet were rooted to the spot, legs trembling and threatening to give out, as that nightmare visage swam into focus. The howling intensified, that damnable cacophony worming its way into my brain until all coherent thoughts scattered like ashes on the wind. Just as I was certain my mind would shatter beneath the onslaught, gunfire erupted from the idling Humvees. The heavy thump of the .50 cals opened up, rifles and machine guns joining in a sweeping torrent of lead that tore the night asunder. The apparition convulsed, shriek cutting off in the gurgling rasp. For a breathless heartbeat, I could have sworn I saw those empty sockets bleeding, thick runnels of midnight ichor seeping forth. Then it started to unravel, its outline twisting and warping like a reflection across a wind-rippled pool. With a final rattling exhalation, the thing simply dissipated. 1 second it was there, filling my vision with its gaping maw and haunting, soul-deep wails. The next, nothing but silence, and the acrid stench of spent gunpowder. I stood there, numb and uncomprehending, my whites clenched around my rifle so tightly, the knuckles shone bone-white through the torn fabric. The ringing in my ears throbbed in time with my thundering pulse. The crackle of Sergeant's voice over comms snapped me back to reality. Everyone sound off, over. One by one, miraculously, the rest of the squad checked in and confirmed their status. Not a single casualty, by some inconceivable stroke of luck. Even Franco had made it out of the compound in time. Then let's get the hell out of this place before whatever that was comes back for an encore, Sergeant growled. Dust off in 30 seconds, move it! I didn't need to be told twice. As I climbed into the Humvee, I met the wide, haunted gaze of our gunner as he swiveled the .50 cal to cover our approach. His face was smeared in sweat and gunpowder, eyes hollow with the 1,000-yard stare. What the hell was that thing, Mikey? He rasped, voice little more than a hoarse croak. I could only shake my head numbly, at a total loss for words. How could I even begin to describe what we'd just borne witness to? Things that should only exist in fever dreams and ancient legends. Called forth by what? The growl of engines split the silence as our convoy roared into motion, wasting no time getting the hell out of there, making our way back to base under the pale glow of dawn. As we left the maze of mud brick compounds behind, I cast one last glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see that nightmarish visage rematerializing in our wake. We were immediately debriefed and tested for signs of psychological trauma or viral pathogens that could have caused such vivid, shared hallucinations. But every exam came back normal. To this day, I have no idea what the hell we experienced out there. No rational scientific explanation can account for what happened. And every fiber of my being hopes I never, ever have to find out.